Hi, Jill. Hi, Jerry. Hi, I'm Don Landis. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Don.
Everybody hear me okay? Okay, just wanted to introduce myself. It's my good friend Sheldon F. from Las Vegas, Nevada. And what we're going to do in this brief time that we're allotted is we're going to talk about the big book. We're going to talk about the 12 steps of recovery. Hopefully, we're going to talk a little bit about what we were like, what's happened to us, and what we're like today. And I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Get some pertinent housekeeping out of the way. I'm 26 years sober. My sobriety date is September 16th, 1991. I have a sponsor. He has a sponsor. I have a home group. It's the SOS Bins group where, gosh, I don't know, men are men and the cattle are nervous. I don't know what to say about my home group. But it's a great home group. I'm real proud of those guys. I hope you love your home group the way I love my home group. Best thing I could tell you about my home group is everybody's got their hand on the rope. And that's not unusual. Lots of groups, everybody's got their hand on the rope, but they're kind of pulling in different directions. But we actually have our hands on the rope and we're pulling in the same direction. So there seems to be some momentum, spiritual in nature, where we're actually getting some things done. And guys are getting sober there. And we got a lot of young guys, a lot of old guys. Good, well-rounded mix of the community is represented in our meeting. And I just love my home group. I live in Bellingham, Washington. If you don't know where that is, go to Seattle and then drive about 100 miles north. Stop about 20 miles from the Canadian border and you'll be in Bellingham. 20 miles from Canadian border, America's first defense against Canada, I suppose. Yeah. And it's beautiful up there. You know, my wife Eileen and I, another good member of Alcoholics Anonymous, we moved up there in 2004, and it's mountains and streams and lakes and the bay, and it's just wonderful, and wildlife, and it's just beautiful. We're city kids, so it was a little bit of a culture shock when we got there, but we're real comfortable with it now and having a very good time. And I don't know if I said we moved there in 2004, and they were doing AA completely wrong when we got there. I remember, I don't know if you've ever relocated. That's the first thing you notice is, boy, we got here right in the nick of time. I don't know how they've made it this far without us. And of course, there is nothing wrong with the AA there. AA works, the book's everywhere. And that, I think, is really important. Why do I think the book is such an important piece of literature? What's this all about, a book? I mean, it's one thing for us to be here together this weekend and sit down and just think about that. You took time out of your busy lives, right? Paid some money to go hang out with some people you see all the time anyway, a lot of you, to go hear a couple of goobers talk about a book you already own. For many of you that you've already read. And the reason I'm such a big guy about the book is I know how AA started. And when AA started, we didn't have 90 meetings in 90 days. We didn't have a book. We didn't have sponsorship the way that we know it today. We were a very small fledgling group of people that had just an idea, just a glancing idea that started with spiritual inspiration with a drunk named Bill W., who thought in order for him to survive, he had to somehow carry a message of some beneficial nature to the next suffering alcoholic. And what's the message that he carried? The simple message: you don't have to hurt no more. I know the way out. There's a power greater than you that's waiting to help you. And I can show you how to get there. And Bill reached back into the abyss, and he grabbed a lot of hands, and not many people wanted to grab his hand, and he finally got a hand that stuck, and that was Dr. Bob. And after that, there was no stopping us. No stopping till what? Till everybody had their opportunity to recover. So what we're trying to do simply as AA members is we're trying to do what our forefathers did. We're trying to carry the message to the alcoholic that still suffers. There's no other job in AA. That's our only job. Everything else is activity that promotes that job. So it's important that we do things like talk about the book, because we have to be prepared for the work that's at hand, the work that's coming to us. The people that haven't arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous yet, that are finishing up their stories, that are out there tonight on the streets, and they're dying, and they're coming to AA, bet your bottom dollar. And we have to prepare ourselves, because people were here on the ready for us, and that's our job today. So we discuss this literature. We put it into life, and we put it into action in our lives. So what? So we can carry the message to the alcoholic that still suffers. And in order for me to have what's occurred in my life, which is a complete resurrection, after an utter and complete failure of my own resources in my life, the best I could do was arrive more dead than alive in AA at age 31. And I need to remember that as I stand here before you, living a good life, in a healthy marriage, surrounded by love and friendship, doing okay financially, having the best life with the best people I've ever known that's in place in my life today. Why those facts are in life, I can never forget who came to Alcoholics Anonymous and what propelled me here. That was the best I could do under my own power. And that's important, more important for me to remember that today than it was the day that I walked in, because it's easy to surrender when you got nothing in your pocket. It's easy surrender when nobody wants nothing to do with you. It's easy surrender when you got no career and you've burned it to the ground and you've hurt every family member that had the misfortune of caring about you. Surrender is easy. But a funny thing happens about the ego. The ego is indestructible. You can smash it, you can burn it, you can tear it into a million pieces, you can scatter it to the winds of the earth, you can take it to the bottom of the ocean and cover it with rock. You can't destroy the human ego, it regenerates. And why all these wonderful things in my life, these blessings I described to you, this bounce in my step, this glint in my eye because of my membership in Alcoholics Anonymous, the thing I know that I've got to guard against, my ego is alive and well today. And its main job is to separate me from you and therefore separate me from God. And when that happens, I'm on thin ice. So I'm so delighted to have the opportunity to come and talk about this magic program that changed and revolutionized my life. And here's the most important thing, and there's people here. Is there anybody here in their first year of sobriety? If you could, just raise your hand so I could see. Anybody here in their first year? Fantastic. I want you to know you're very welcome here. I want to tell you what I think is the most impressive thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous worked, and I didn't want it to work. Alcoholics Anonymous worked, and I didn't believe in it. I didn't come here to get sober. I came in here because I was in trouble. Isn't that unusual? And most of us are chased in here by some form of consequence, aren't we? That's how I got chased in here. So AA does not work because of the alcoholic. It works in spite of him. And why is that good news for all of us? Because you don't have to be bigger, smarter, stronger, faster than the next guy. We can stop comparing ourselves to other people right now. The only reason to compare yourself to another one of God's kids is because your power is going to be involved in the solution, so you want to see how your power matches up with theirs. How's my power matching up with yours? He's doing pretty good, but I don't think I'm as strong as him. I don't think I can do what he's done. That doesn't apply here. We can stop comparing ourselves right now because our power has nothing to do with the solution. And what we're going to talk about, hopefully this evening, are the first three steps. And in our first step, we're going to talk a lot about power. And in the second step, we're going to talk a lot about power. And in the third step, we're going to talk a lot about power. Because that's the real dilemma here. Either lack of it or lack of it and thinking we got it. That's really, if you want to know what almost killed me with my alcoholism, is I actually thought that I had my hands on the reins, that I was involved. That as the cart of my life was careening towards the cliff and my ultimate demise, I actually thought, you know what I was? I was like that little kid sitting in the back seat with the play steering wheel with the little beep, beep, he gets to honk it, and he's actually turning it thinking he's making the car turn. That's me and my alcoholism. I actually thought I had some power where that was concerned. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our first step in this first session. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And there's some things that I had to get over, some misconceptions I had about that when I first got here, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. What I want to do is I want to start off reading something from the Big Book, because the title of this thing was The Big Book Comes Alive, so we should at least read a paragraph while we're here this weekend.
At least one or two.
We get 4 in there, I'm good. How about you, buddy? There's a book? Yes. It's a big book. And Chapter 3, more about alcoholism, page 30. Most of us have been unwilling to admit that we were real alcoholic. No person likes to think he's bodily and mentally different from his fellows. I don't want to admit this thing. I don't want to think it's happening to me. I want to come up with every excuse I possibly can. I want to be a rationalizer and a justifier. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I'll be anything but an alcoholic. Not a lot of class there. Therefore, it's not surprising our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. I know what it looks like to you, but it's really not that bad. Let me show you why. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it in the gates of insanity or death. The great obsession of every abnormal drinker. What's my great obsession? What's an obsession? Let's start there. What's a good, simple explanation of obsession that everybody can latch onto and you can use? How about this? When I think of little or nothing else. Works for me. So when I think of little or nothing else but my great obsession, which is somehow, someday, I'm going to control and enjoy my drinking. I'm going to stop going to jail, crashing cars, breaking hearts, being a loser, hurting the family members, all that stuff. I remember when it worked. I'm going to get there again. I just have to get the right formula. I have to focus. I have to try harder. I'm not going to quit drinking because that's bananas. But it's these other things. You know, I got to change my friends. Maybe I got to change my job, my woman, my neighbor. Something's got to change. It's not the drinking. I know it looks like the drinking. But I have this obsession. And where does the obsession live? Is it outside of me? No, it's between my ears. It's the constant chatter in my head that I'm going to figure it out, that this time it's going to be different. And I can't let go of the thought. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. Or presently may be. It's easy to concede to that to my innermost self. I think I'm doing that when I'm new in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I've been driven into Alcoholics Anonymous under the lash of alcoholism, under the weight of my consequences. So it's easy to come in here for me, and when somebody goes, you might be an alcoholic, I'm like, no kidding. You think? You think? I went to jail in Rancho Cucamonga, California, in a blackout. Lots of people do that. I happened to be naked at the time. And I think we can all agree that if you're in a blackout and you go to jail in Rancho Cucamonga naked, that ain't social drinking, now is it? So I have no problem with the trouble surrounding my drinking. You see, that's what I think alcoholism is. I go to jail, I crash cars, I break hearts, I can't keep jobs. I think that's what alcoholism is, but it's not, is it? I had to learn what alcoholism was after I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, because I thought it was the results of what happened, the actions I take when a guy like me drinks. I think that's my alcoholism. I think it's consequence. You see, for many years, I didn't want to quit drinking. What I wanted was the consequences to stop. Now, I might have said to you, I don't want to drink anymore, I don't want to hurt you anymore, I don't want to live that way. I was lying. What I wanted was to drink to oblivion without consequence. I want to check out. I want to be free of what? Of me. I want to stop the madness in my head. I want to stop the boredom I live in a sober state. I want to try to make some sense of this thing called life, and the only thing that seems to do that for me is pouring whiskey in me. I don't want the consequences. I think if you can get rid of the consequences, you get rid of my alcoholism. But I'm mistaken. Where is my innermost self located? Oh, well, it's inside you, isn't it? Well, yeah, it is. But I'll tell you, my first sponsor did a first step exercise with me. It was interesting. And I did this my first week in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got a sponsor my second night in AA, and he was a big book guy, and he got me busy. He was not a guy that wanted me to get my feet underneath me. He didn't care that I had audio and visual hallucinations. He said, you can stack chairs, just keep grabbing until one is actually there, and then you'll go stack them. And he was a big believer in getting busy in this stuff, that action was going to be the magic word. So he told me that you really couldn't say that you completed the first step until you could teach somebody the first step. Until you can teach it, you don't know it. He said, so tomorrow night after the meeting, I'm a week sober. He says, we're going to sit down and I want you to teach me the first step. Because we've been talking about the first step every night after meetings. He thought I'd had enough information. He says, you have all the information about the first step you're ever going to need to stay sober the rest of your life. The problem is that's not how we stay sober. Right now it's up here. We have to find out if it got down to here. We have to get it from your head to your heart. And I don't know if you've done that unless you can teach it to me. So I went home and I boned up, you know what I mean? Because I might be a week sober, but I still got an ego. And I hear a challenge when I hear one. And it's like, I'm going to do that. So I got out the 12 and 12, the big book. I read everything I could find on the first step. And after the meeting the next night, I gave, in my humble opinion, the greatest dissertation on the first step ever given in Alcoholics Anonymous by a newcomer. I have no idea if my sponsor was impressed, but I'll tell you this much. I had tears in my eyes. You know what I mean? It was outstanding. And I knew he was going to tell me, my God, we've been in AA's been here for almost 7 years. We've been waiting for you. And that's not what he said. He said no. Well, he said no the way he always said no. He said it 3 times. He said no, no, no. And he asked me if I had admitted to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. And I said, I think so. And he said, well, let's find out. He said, go home to your sister's house tonight where you're mooching a room. And I want you to get quiet, sit in the end of the bed in the dark, no TV, no radio, no distraction. And I want you to think one thing and one thing only in your mind. And say it over and over in your mind in your voice. Do that for about 15 minutes and then call me. And what I want you to say is, I'm an alcoholic. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm an alcoholic. And it sounded silly, a little embarrassed, but I did it, you know. I sat on the end of the bed in the dark all alone, and I said, all right, he's my sponsor. I said, I do what he asked me to do. Okay. I'm an alcoholic. 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 And as I said that over and over in my mind, things suddenly became attached to that simple statement, things I thought I'd forgotten, things I'd hoped I'd forgotten. And I started seeing my life unravel in front of me in my own mind, and I started seeing all the things connected with my drinking life. And I did that for about 15 minutes, and when I got off the phone, I called my sponsor up, and he said, did you do it? I said, yeah, man, and I'm in a lot of trouble. And I got the first step that night. And he explained to me that if I didn't understand the trouble I was in while I was in the first step, that I would never approach the rest of the steps with the kind of vigor and force required for their successful consummation, because why would you? Why would I become open-minded to the existence that there's a power greater than me that could restore me to sanity if I didn't think my bacon was on the line? Why would I? Why would I turn everything over to that power if I didn't think my very life was at stake? Why would I take all those things, those humbling, embarrassing things that I swore I'd take to my grave? Why would I get those down on paper and go through that process of inventory with God and another human being if I didn't think my very life was at stake? Why would I take that information, those things I have no power to do anything about? Why would I bring them to this God I don't even believe in when I'm new? Why would I do that if I didn't think I was going to die if I didn't? Why would I go back and clean it up and face those people I hope I never had to see again? Something has to happen in the first step that's going to carry me through the rest of the steps. You know, there's something that new people have in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's probably the most precious thing that you can have when you're new. It's a commodity that without this commodity, I really don't believe you're going to have success going through the steps. And most newcomers have it. I haven't really met a good newcomer that didn't have it. And not one of these newcomers, including myself when I had it when I was new, recognized the value of this commodity. And why is that? Oh, it makes you feel bad. You know, the ingredients of this commodity seem to be guilt and shame and remorse. And it turns out that this commodity, this precious commodity that we have when we're new, is called desperation. And why is this desperation so important? Well, it turns out that this desperation we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous is truly the propellant that will end up taking us through the steps. It's the thing that pushes us through when we don't want to go. It's the thing that makes us open-minded because we still remember where we just came from. It's the force, it's the inertia that gets us out of the way and pushes us towards God. But here's the problem. Like any propellant you can think of, you don't have an inexhaustible supply. I mean, how much you got? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months? You know, we come in here with our new friends, and I talk to new guys in AA all the time, and I go, what step are you on, man? He's 6 months sober. He goes, well, I'm the second step. How's that possible? Talk to guys that got 4 months. What step are you on? Well, I'm just starting the third step. My sponsor wants me to kind of take my time. He really wants to make sure I understand this stuff. Understand it? Why? Is this intellectual? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were in AA. I thought we were in a spiritual way of life. I must have shown up in the college course of AA. There must be a curriculum here. So when I'm complete, you'll give me a diploma, and I can hang it on my wall, and it'll say, Don Landis completed Alcoholics Anonymous, has conquered alcoholism, and I can skip down my merry way. That's not what we're talking about here. This is not intellectual. This is spiritual. This is not of the head. This is of the heart. When we approach it from the head, we get the results of intellect. When we approach it from the heart, we get results of the spirit. I want results of the spirit. That is the power we were talking about here. So we stop worrying about perfection. Perfection is something that's man-made by our ego and it lives in our intellect. It doesn't exist. We can stop worrying about our new friends being perfect and we can just get them through the work. All we're trying to do is get them a proper introduction. You know what AA is? It's an invitation. You know what the 12 steps are? It's an invitation. Invitation to what? Go home. Go back where you came from. Hook up with that power that made you, that we walked away from. But we make it intellectual. We sit around rooms discussing the big book. What did Bill really mean when he wrote rarely?
Well, you know the Greek origin of the word rarely.
I want to throw my book at people. Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is a set of instructions or directions if you prefer. It is the menu, it is not the food. I would not try to attempt what we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous without directions, though, I'll tell you that. I'll give you a simple analogy for that. When I was new in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor decided that he didn't want me to go back in the career that I had had for many years and drank myself out of, because he was afraid I'd make too much money. I know that's strange, that doesn't sound like real life, but he said, no, you'll go back there and then you'll make the big money and then your ego won't be smashed, then you won't have time for AA and you'll drink and you'll die and it won't matter anyway. No, Don, for you we need something humbling. And he found out I'd never worked with my hands. So he got me a job as a laborer on a framing crew. Now, I'd love to tell you at this point in my story that I found out my true life's calling was to work with my hands, but I'd be lying. I sucked at that job. I was awful. I had a nickname on the job site, the Bleeder, okay? Now, that's new in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, today, if you were to come to my home and I opened up my garage and I took you inside, you would see workbenches built all the way around the garage, and I built those workbenches. On the back of those workbenches, you would see an organized peg hanging system, and every hand tool known to man is hanging on there, power tools included. Underneath those benches where I have built-in storage, you would see every power tool known. Around the perimeter of my garage, you would see every stand-up saw. You can tile saws, band saws, chop saws, radial arm saws, reciprocating saws. I got it all, right? For a guy that couldn't handle a hammer without hurting himself, something has happened. And here's what happened. I got the directions. Then what? I sucked. To this day, I'll get a tool I've never used before. You know what I do? I open the box, I get the directions out. And then I walk away from the box. I get as far away from it as possible. I go back in the house, and I sit down, and I read the directions. And there's a certain amount of information that I get out of those directions that is helpful. I get a general idea of what this thing is supposed to do and the warnings about it, what to do. Now, you do this, you may cut this off. You know, that's important information, too. The big book isn't just about if you do this, you'll get all this wonderful stuff. It's full of warnings, too. If you do this, you're going to die. That's a big warning in the big book. It's all through it. And so then what do? Do I just fire that sucker up and start using? Oh, no. No, why would I do that? Why would I not make use of the experience that went before me? Why would I use a tool like I'm the first human being in the world that ever had to use it? No, I find out other people that own that tool. And I say, how do you use this? And I'll have a buddy come over that already owns that tool, and he'll show me how to use it. And as I'm watching him demonstrate how to use the tool, I will say things like this. Oh, I would have never figured that out. We do the same thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. We get the directions, and then we get a sponsor. Our sponsor shows us how to use the tool through demonstration. We watch him use the tools in his life. We go, oh, that's how you do it. I would have never known how that's how you be a married man. That's how you go to work. That's how you pay your taxes. That's how you show up at AA. That's how you set up a meeting. That's how you do 12-step work. I would have never known that. I get taught through demonstration. And then what do? I practice. And I'm terrible at first, but I stick with it because repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds comfort. So as I stay in the process of the 12 steps over and over again, I get familiar through repetition, and I get comfortable. And suddenly I wake up one day, and I know how to use the tools in my life, and then it becomes a choice to serve God or serve Don. So the first step, I'm going to take about 3-4 minutes to turn over to my buddy Sheldon. I think that my problem is the consequences of my drinking. What that doesn't explain is what happens to me when I don't drink. Because if drinking is my problem, then all I have to do is stop drinking and I'll be fine, correct? Makes sense to me. I tried it for about 5-6 years after I had self-knowledge. After I knew the drink was killing me, not mom or dad or the district attorney telling me, when I knew the drink was killing me, I knew I had to stop, and I knew it would be no big deal stopping. Because I have a problem with drinking, so I just need to knock it off and everything will be fine, because I have been brainwashed, as I believe most people in this room, before they came to Alcoholics Anonymous, underwent a successful brainwashing as I did. And my brainwashing was carried out by the people that knew me more than anyone else and wanted the best things in the world for me. And I don't know what they said to you, but this is what they said to me. You're a great guy. We love you. You got a lot of potential. You know, you could probably be anything you wanted to be if you just quit drinking. You know, you could go anywhere you wanted to go if you just quit drinking. All your dreams would come true if you just quit drinking. You'd be so happy if you just quit drinking. So I lay my experience against that, and I go, let's see. I went to jail, I was drinking, smacked that guy, I was drinking, blew up the relationship, I was drinking, crashed the car, I was drinking, and it starts to make sense in my alcoholic mind. Yeah, if I quit drinking, everything will be fine. So what do? I quit drinking, and what do I wait for? Everything to be fine. But what happens? I go insane in my own skin. In short order, I have what's described in the doctor's opinion, which my friend Sheldon is going to talk about, is I'm arriving in a state where I am rendered irritable, restless, and discontent, which I believe is the greatest understatement in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the propulsion system for untreated alcoholism. It is what takes me back to the drink. You see, I don't have a drinking problem, I have a living problem. Drinking is my solution, it is not my problem. I hate the way I feel when I'm sober. That's my big secret. Not that I drink too much. It's that when I don't drink and everybody around me goes, you're doing so well, we're so proud of you, it's all going to be fine, I want to kill them or myself. And it's shameful and it's embarrassing that the thing that's ripping the skin off of your life, when you're removed from it, you miss it desperately. Like the most obsessive love affair you can ever imagine, where everyone's saying, you're better off without her. She was going to kill you. She never loved you. You deserve better. I know. I know. I know what it looks like. God, I miss her. I think about her all the time. I see her everywhere I go, and every song I hear, I just miss her desperately. I feel so empty without her. And I will try the old game again. Because when I live in irritable, restless, and discontent, I have a saturation point. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you asked me what kills alcoholics, I would have said whiskey and car crashes with no hesitation. And today I say discontent. Let's flip over to a vision for you real quickly. Bottom of page 151. Now and then a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. Why do people leave Alcoholics Anonymous and go back to the grinder they just left? They're not happy about their sobriety. It's not confusing. We could say they weren't going to enough meetings, they weren't working the steps, they didn't have a good conscious contact, and all that might be true, but all those things are designed to create personal happiness in a sober state. Contentment. Contentment. And you know, contentment is not happy. You know what's funny? We get confused about that. Happy, unhappy. I can live with happy, unhappy. That's about my money, what kind of mood my wife's in, how it's going in business. That's the conveyor belt of life, right? Everybody gets their turn in the barrel. Happy, unhappy. I can live with that. Content or discontent are much more powerful, and this is why. When I am truly discontent, spiritually discontent, living in untreated alcoholism, drunk or sober, it doesn't matter how much money I make, how many people tell me I'm the man, how many things go my way in business. You know what alcoholics like? You know what we like? We like it when it's wrong. We like it when there's things wrong in our life, so we have an explanation for why we feel like crap. I feel like crap and I go, well, you know, I got fired. I should feel like crap. I feel like crap. Well, she left me. You know, that makes sense. I should feel like crap. I got a bad diagnosis. I should feel like crap. You know what makes us crazy? I mean, local is when there's nothing wrong. Oh, but we feel like something's wrong. We lay in bed at night trying to put our finger on it. We're doing the math, aren't we? I see a job. Job's good. I just got a promotion. They like me at work. Nope, not the job. Wife. Maybe say, no, she's smoking hot. Likes me too. God, not the wife. The kids are good. Good. Money's good. Neighbors. Nope, nice neighborhood. Nice. AA. No, everybody likes me in AA. They actually think I'm a good example. That's very, that's weird. Why do I want to kill myself? I don't know. And we go to meetings, right? We lie. We go to meetings. How's it going, Donnie? Good. Could be better. Any better? I go on a shooting spree. How are you? And we're discontent and we're confused because we've been brainwashed into thinking if we get out of the trouble and we have the things that the world tells us make people happy and we have those things, we'll be happy. It's got nothing to do with alcoholism. We're discontent. Nothing from outside of me can comfort that disturbance that lives on the inside. It is inaccessible by things of man and outside of me. The disturbance is on the inside. I take things from the outside and I try to stuff them into a place that they don't fit and it doesn't work. And I'm discontent, no matter how good my life gets. It's untreated alcoholism. I have a complete and utter inability to experience joy in a sober state. But here's the good news. True contentment, the kind of contentment that the old-timers call serenity around here, doesn't matter what's going on in your life. When you have true spiritual contentment, you're living simply the way you think God would have you live, with your heart and mind attuned to the welfare of others, doing the work described in this book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Doesn't matter what's going on outside. Doesn't matter how things are going. Doesn't mean you like it. It just means that you don't get crazy. It just means that you don't get discontent. Because things outside of you cannot disturb your inner contentment. Because your inner contentment was not created by things outside of you. It's created by service to others, relationship with God, hearts and mind attuned to the welfare of others. These things are not disturbed by things made of man and things outside of ourselves. So this mysterious thing that we hear about when we're new, that we don't understand what the old-timers are talking about, the inside job, starts to make more sense. We got to bring the right stuff if we're going to fix the inside job. Turn it over to you, Sheldon.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sheldon Fady. I'm an alcoholic.
What?
It's a great honor and a privilege to be invited out here to share this weekend with you guys. I want you to know, I want to tell you early on, you're going to know this by the end of tomorrow night. But I want you to know up front that I am not an expert on Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just a guy that's been reading this book for over 20 years. And sharing it with friends and sharing it with the guys I sponsor and listening to my sponsor. And I fell in love with this process because of what it's done for my life. And I think as I look out in the room, I think most of you guys are the same, right? The people that come to book studies are people like me that have fallen in love with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and with this process and what it's done for us. And it's mystical and it's magical and it makes no sense. I don't know if you've ever done this. I went through a phase, probably about 4 or 5 years sober, where I knew where the good dope was in the big book, right? And if you did it this way and you dotted these I's and you crossed these T's, and we had this this thing that we did perfectly, and if you did it perfectly, then it was perfect, and you'd be as sober can be, and you'd be happy, God damn it, and then. And I've started to learn over the last number of years in AA that God and spirituality is in the spaces and in the darkness and in the gaps and in the things that we don't know. And I don't want anybody to get the idea that if what you're doing and what your sponsor is showing you and what you've been doing to stay sober has a different flavor than what I'm going to talk about my experiences, that somehow you're doing something wrong. Because I tell you, AA is about one thing. It's about one thing and one thing only. It's about how's it going. If it's going pretty good, it's going pretty good. If it's not going so good, it ain't going so good, right? And what is successful sobriety? I heard a guy say this and it just floored me. It's being sober on purpose and happy about it most of the time. Right? And if that's the life you're living, then you're a successful member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But if you're sober against your will, like you hate it, but you're doing it because you're being punished, like AA is punishment for your alcoholism, right? There's something wrong. And if you're not happy most of the time, if you haven't found a spirit in Alcoholics Anonymous that allows you to breathe and have fun and enjoy sobriety, then there's something else that you need to do. Because isn't that why I drank? I remember my first drink. I was 9 years old. I was a little kid. I was with this guy called Barry, and I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. I didn't know there was a problem in my life. Now, I'm short and I'm fat, right? And I'm this little Jewish kid in a non-Jewish neighborhood. A lot of prejudice, right? Very uncomfortable. My parents are divorced. Dad split when I was 2 years old. My brother's a pain in the ass. I don't like where I live. We're a Section 8 family. I'm a welfare baby. But I don't know any of this is really wrong, right? It's just who I am and how I am. But because of my life, there's this tightness about me that I couldn't have told you about it. I just was like, I'm this 9-year-old on the muscle, right? And this kid, Barry, takes me into this wooded area and gives me something to drink. And I didn't know until the minute I took that drink how much was wrong with me. But I tell you, for the first time ever when I took that drink, I felt like, oh my gosh, it had been wrong until that moment. Right? And I took that drink and I felt like I could breathe, and I made a decision at 9 years old that I was going to drink as much as I could whenever I could for the rest of my life, because this is how it's supposed to feel. It's like you guys had been holding out, right? You knew the answer. The answer was booze, and you made me wait until I was 9. Right? Which, if you loved me, right, somewhere around 4, you'd have passed me a bottle, right? But I started to drink at 9 years old, and I don't drink every day, and I'm not drinking. You know, my mom's pretty strict, but by the time I'm 13, 14 years old, I'm drinking something, taking something, smoking something, doing something every single day, because I just need that. I crave that feeling, that whoo. And I can't, Don read the part of the book in Vision for You, and he stopped just short of where it says, we can't, after a while, imagine life without alcohol. By the time I was 13, 14 years old, I couldn't imagine what it would be like not to drink. In fact, it went further than that. I couldn't imagine why you wouldn't drink. If you weren't drinking with me in high school, what do we call you? We called you squares. You're the squares. You're the straights. Stay away from them. You can't trust them. How do you trust someone that doesn't drink? How do you trust somebody that doesn't get that magic when they put that stuff in their body? There's something wrong with those people. Right? I mean, you can't talk to them, can't deal with them, can't look at them. They do their algebra homework, for God's sakes. There's something wrong with them, right? They're just broken people. They're just broken, right? So I'm drinking something, taking something, and I love it, and I love drinking. I love everything about it. I can't imagine for the rest of my life not drinking. But then as Don talked about, what happens as I continue down that path is that I start getting these consequences. Little things at first, right? Like, I don't know, I miss a day of work. It's Monday morning and I'm late for work, or it's Friday and I go out to lunch with the boys and we have a few drinks and I don't make it back, or I spend my rent money. I don't know if any rent money spenders, right? Right? I spend my rent money, and spending your rent money is a funny process. It's the process by which, where you have the rent money, you have all the rent money, you're in the bar, you're out of money other than the rent money, and you decide you're just going to spend $20 $20 of the rent money, because if you go to the landlord with all the rent money minus $20, you know he's going to accept it. You could owe him a 20, but then the minute you spend the 20, you know he won't take any of the money. You might as well spend it all. Right? You just know. That guy, and you blame him, right? That son of a bitch, he wouldn't understand, right? So you spend the rent money a couple of times of the car payment, or you make a few promises, and you start getting a little bit of trouble, but it's not a big deal. And it's not a big deal because of the magic, because of the ability to breathe. Because when I drink, something happens inside of me that doesn't seem to happen to people that don't have alcoholism. When I drink, it just makes everything better. Everything is better when I'm drinking. But I'm starting to get in more and more trouble. I get a DUI. I had a great career. When I was a kid, I was a fairground pitchman. I sold Ginsu knives at the state and county fair. But wait, there's more. And then I ended up on, because of a weird set of circumstances that began with an earthquake in San Francisco, I ended up on QVC, and I was a national spokesperson for a company. And I was 23 years old, and I was the youngest executive of Kenwood had ever had in their history. And after a couple of years, they fired me. And when they fired me, now I knew why they fired me. Because we always know, don't we? Right? I knew. I'm a Jew, and Bernard, who worked at the company, was anti-Semitic. You can't, the people are just messed up, right? And the racism and prejudice is everywhere, and that's not what they said when they fired me, but I knew the truth. What they said was they didn't want an alcoholic crack addict as their national spokesperson, it was unreasonable is what it was. To this day, I'm not convinced. I lost that job, got another good job, lost that job, got another good job. Now I can't get a job, I can't get anywhere to live. I lived at my dad's house. He asked me, don't drink in the house. I drank in the house. He made me leave. I had a roommate that he wanted me to pay my share. I had to leave. I had a friend that let me sleep in his spare room on charity. He let me, but I stole. Stealing is a funny word, isn't it? I borrowed with the intent of replacing with no means to replace, right? But at the time, I'm not a thief. When I look at you, some of you are thieves. I'm a survivor, is what I am. And you get me scared enough or dry enough or cranky, I'll do whatever it takes, really. And I did, and he asked me to leave, and now I'm in detox because I got nowhere else to go, and I'm in a homeless shelter. And I don't know how you go from the national spokesperson for Kenwood Appliances to a homeless shelter in 24 months, but I pulled it off. It's one of my proudest. I'm just straight into the ground. And it was everybody else's fault. I had a list of people whose fault it was. But anyway, so I get to this homeless shelter, I get to this detox, then I move into a halfway house, and I start coming around AA, and I didn't stay in the halfway house long. They wanted me to do chores and be home at a certain time. And the guy that ran the place was a plumber. I was the national spokesperson for Kenwood Appliances. I hadn't worked for 2 years, but still, I don't know who. Punky the plumber is telling me how to live my life, and so I left with my first paycheck. And what happened was the worst 3 years of my life. Because here's what happened to me when I left that halfway house, is that I drank to get sober, to get sober, to get drunk, to get drunk, to get sober, to get sober, to get drunk. I was able to stay sober for about 4 or 5 or 6 days, 10 days on average. I got 30 days twice, and I lied about 60 days once, is the sum total of my sobriety career. Because here's what happened to me, right, is that I would not drink. And I'm not going to drink, and I would not drink. And why would I drink? I mean, really, I'm just not going to drink. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. But here's what happens when I don't drink. Something inside of me gets just kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I get like that thing, that not being able to breathe thing, that thing that I discovered the cure for when I was 9 years old creeps back into my life. And I just get to where, I don't know. I mean, the book says, in the doctor's opinion, It says that men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it's injurious, and I knew it was injurious, it had taken away my career, it had taken away my next job, the last job. I'm homeless. I'm living on the charity of friends, sleeping on couches. I've been in a halfway house. My dad won't talk to me. My mom won't talk to me. My life's spinning out of control. I haven't had any intimate relationships for a long time. I haven't had any real friendships for a long time. Everyone's mad at me. I got warrants out for my arrest. And I can see by this point, early on I couldn't see, but I can see by this point that it's the drinking that like Don said, every time all these things happen, I was drinking. I can see it's injurious. After a time, I can't differentiate the true from the false. I don't know if people are telling me drinking is the problem. Right? Sheldon, you drink too much. Sheldon, you drink too much. And it seems like that makes sense, except for the fact that I've tried to be sober. I've tried to be sober. I've tried not to drink. And it doesn't make sense to me that drinking is the problem, because not drinking, what happens to me is what it says here, that they're restless, irritable, and discontented. And I am. When I'm not drinking, I'm restless. I just feel like I should be. I don't know what we're doing. And what we're doing could be fun and it could be fine, but I'm telling you, whatever we're doing, we should be doing something else, right? Because I just don't feel like, if you don't feel like you belong and you're kind of squirmy and you just feel like, right? It's hard to, how do you put it into words unless you felt it? You try, if you say one of your friends, how you doing? Well, I just kind of feel, right? But you know what I mean. I get that uptight, tense, right? I need to change something. Something has to change. I'm restless and I'm irritable. Well, I'm not sure about that, to be honest. It's not me. I'm not irritable. It's you. You're pissing me off. You do a lot of things that annoy me. One of them is that breathing thing that you do. It's just relentless. It's constant, and it's in and out. But it's not, it's just, I get this edge on me. The world just feels like it's against me. It just feels like everyone's attacking me. It's like I walk in a room and I know stuff. I know you're thinking about me. I know you've been talking about me. I know you're in judgment of me. And you should be, because you know what? I know what I am. I'm not a good guy. I'm a piece of crap, but that doesn't give you the right to think the things that you're thinking. And I don't want anything to do with any of you. And I get this, right? And I'm restless and I'm discontented. And when I first got here, when you said that you are spiritually discontented, the guy who said that to me, he's still my sponsor today. I've only ever had one sponsor, right? This guy, 1996, we're outside the Kiss Club. And I have an apartment, but I haven't paid rent for 2 months. I have a car, but it blows blue smoke. I have a job, but it's really a bad one, and they're getting ready to fire me. I haven't had a girlfriend in I don't know how long, because when I drink, the book says that we're dangerously and disgustingly antisocial. I'm not very dangerous, but I'm disgusting, right? So, and when you're disgustingly antisocial, you're not very social. And so my life is, I'm 5 or 6 days sober, right? And this guy's leaning against his brand new Q45. I'll never forget, dripping in gold, right? Head to freaking toe, dripping in gold, fine silk shirt, fancy jeans, fancy shoes, and there's a hot blonde waiting for him 30 feet away from us, right? That he said, hold on a second, honey, let me talk to Punky, the new guy. I'll be right there, right? And he starts telling me that my problem is that I'm discontented. And I wanted to scream at him, if you lived in my life, you'd be discontented too. This isn't spiritual discontentedness. It's that my life sucks, right? I'm just, And this is how I feel. And I'm not going to go get drunk. But I do need to take the edge off. And so I'm just going to have 1, maybe 2, 3 at the most, no more than 4. No more than 4. Because I don't want to burn my life to the ground, but I have to find a way to breathe. A state of abstinence, me not drinking, I feel like I'm being strangled. I feel like I'm being choked. I feel like the pressure of the world is on me. I just need, So I go have one, maybe 2, 3 at the most. No more than 4. No more than 4. But this thing happens to me, where when I have 2 or 3, it seems to turn into all of them. How many are you going to have tonight? I don't know. All of them. Until you stop me, or I run out of money, or I get arrested, or I pass out, or something, right? I'm just going to have all of them. I'm just going to have them all. All right? And I come to AA, and I try and explain this to you guys. And I explain to you, first of all, this thing where I always seem to cross the line. I have too many. I go above and beyond that. At the top of that page I read from a moment ago, it says, we believe and so suggested a few years ago that the action of alcohol in these chronic alcoholics is the manifestation of an allergy. Manifestation, the proof that an allergy exists. An allergy, an abnormal reaction, a reaction different from most of the population takes. That the phenomenon of craving, now I don't understand the phenomenon of craving. It turns out that's okay, because phenomenon just means something we don't understand, so that's good. Nobody understands it, right? But which is pleasantly a surprise for me, because you always act like, oh, I expect you have a phenomenon of craving. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's a craving, and we don't know why. But I have a phenomenon of craving that's limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. And you explain to me that what happens, Sheldon, is when you drink, when you have 2 or 3 drinks, what happens to you is that you will then drink against your will. You will then drink against your will, which makes no sense to me. Because I got to tell you, I stood here tonight, 21 years plus sober. I have never had a drink against my will, ever. So I don't understand that. It doesn't feel right to me. What do you mean I drink against my will? It sounds like you mean that I get a bottle of scotch, I take the top off, I pour myself 1 or 2, 3 shots, and by the time I have the 3rd shot, the bottle poof, grows arms and legs, right? And then it grabs me by the scruff of the neck and it throws me down on the table and it starts pouring itself down my throat. And the whole time I'm screaming, no, no, I'm an alcoholic, for God's sakes. What's wrong with you? It's not what happens to me. What happens to me is that I start out to decide I'm going to just take the edge off. I'm going to have 1, maybe 2, 3 at the most. No more than 4, right? We're done at 4. And then the phenomenon of craving kicks in, and here's how the phenomenon of craving kicks in. I change my mind. And that is how the phenomenon of craving appears in my life, is that I change my mind. All of a sudden, it becomes a good idea for me to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All of a sudden, it makes sense for me to do what I always do, which is burn my life to the ground. And I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do. Because I got 2 things wrong with me. I got this thing wrong with me where when I don't drink, life gets so uncomfortable. It starts out at boring. It starts out where the color's gone. It starts out at, I'm staying sober, and it's just, it's great. I'm so glad I'm sober. Oh, my God, how long am I sober now? Oh, God. I'm sober forever. 4 days. Oh, my God, right? But by the time 8 days comes, it's like, oh, my God, I'm sober. I can't believe I'm sober. Is this what sober is going to be like? Some guy at a meeting says he's got 40 years of sobriety, and you clap. And I think, you poor bastard. Because I just imagine you felt 8 days sober for 40 years, right? I can't imagine what that would be like. I want to kill something. I mean, I'm 8 days sober, and I'm just right? Because this is what I think. I think when you say, because this is my favorite AA thing, right? You say to me, Sheldon, don't worry about staying sober forever. In AA, we don't stay sober forever. We stay sober, and you say this like it's good news. We stay sober 1 day at a time. And here's what it sounds like to me when I'm new. Sheldon, if you come to AA,
And you do everything we have to offer. You stack chairs, you help newcomers, you read out of the book, you share in meetings, you do everything. Do it all. Get a sponsor, get a home group, do everything. You can stay sober one day at a time. One long, miserable, painful day at a time. You too can suffer in Alcoholics Anonymous with us one day at a time. And if I say to you, I can't do that, you say, don't worry. If you can't do it one day at a time, stick with us. You can do it 1 minute at a time. And I just want to run out of the room screaming, ah! I can't stay sober because of what it feels like to be sober. And I can't drink because when I drink, I always burn my life to the ground. I'm stuck. I'm in a trap I can't spring. And what I have to understand is that that is the essence of alcoholism. We're going to talk, I've made this mistake for years. We're going to talk in steps 6 and 7 and 10 and 11. We're going to talk about the unmanageability of the sober alcoholic. But I tell you, when I was new, if you'd have talked to me about the unmanageability as a newcomer, the way that you need to talk to me now as a guy with some time, you'd have lost me. Because talking to me about sober unmanageability when I'm new makes no sense. I've never been sober. All right? The unmanageability for the newcomer is this. I know I should stop and I can't. I know better. I should do better, but I can't. I know, and I've tried. And you think you hate me? You should see how I hate me. I can't. I want to, and I can't. I should want to more, and I don't. I am stuck. And it's so important that I understand what the problem is. Because when I was new for the first couple of 3 years that I was going in and out of here, I didn't understand the problem. Here's what I thought the problem was. I thought the problem was that I didn't have enough money. See, if you're new and you're here because you don't have enough money, and that's what has you going to Alcoholics Anonymous, I got great news for you. Stick around a little bit, you'll get some money. But then the problem will be solved, you'll stop coming, and if you have alcoholism, you will have another flare-up of untreated alcoholism and you will drink again. If the problem is she's mad at you or he's mad at you, if that's why you're here, I got great news. Come to a few meetings. They get very impressed very quickly. They're easy, right? That's why they're with us, because they're easily impressed, right? And so it's true. It's true. If you show up here for a half a dozen meetings and you don't drink for a week, they'll just be so over the moon and delighted that they'll let you back in the big bed. Oh my God, you're doing so good, honey. And you'll be back in the big bed and you'll quit coming here. And then you know what's going to happen. She's going to cut it up in your sleep. Because you're going to drink again, because that's what's going to happen, right? That's what's going to happen. If it's the warrants, you're going to end up in prison, because the warrants will go away, and then you'll drink again. See, Alcoholics Anonymous will solve any problem you bring to it. I have brought unemployment to AA, and very quickly I've gotten a job. I brought homelessness to AA, and very quickly I've gotten somewhere to sleep. I brought being broke to AA, and very quickly I had a few dollars in my pocket. I brought loneliness to AA, and very quickly, I found love on the AA campus, right? I brought every problem in the world to Alcoholics Anonymous, and every one of those problems has been solved here because we're a community of people. And any time, any community of people, you get together. If you join the Masonic Lodge, they'll help you find jobs and play. I mean, it's just a community of people. But the thing is that that's not really my problem. My problem is this, and until I understand this, I'll never get relief. My problem is this. In a state of abstinence, I will feel so empty and so alone and so afraid and so vacant, and a hole will open up inside of me spiritually that is impossible to fill with anything. And it will drive me to this point of uncomfortability where I will, in desperation, even though I know I shouldn't, even though I know I will burn my life to the ground, I will be driven to drink again. regardless of my experience, I will be driven to drink again, and I don't know when. Could be this week, next month, but I do it again. I'm a do it again guy. 3 years in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, drinking to get sober, to get loaded, over and over again. No matter what the outside circumstances were, at some point the vacancy inside me was so great that I would drink again. And if that was all that was wrong with me, it would be fine. I'd be like a character from a 1950s movie. Tough day at the office, honey, pour me a double. All right? I'd have a, oh, that feels so wonderful. Now let's go to bed, raise the kids, go on vacation, blah, 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 blah. But the problem is that I have that double. I got this other thing wrong with me. And what happens, and I can't explain why, it's almost like it's a phenomenon, for God's sakes, right? I don't understand why, but for some reason when I have those couple of drinks, I have a couple more, and then a couple more, and a couple more, and a couple more, and they burn my life to the ground. And this is what is wrong with me. I have a physical allergy to alcohol that makes me drink more than I intend to drink. I have a spiritual malady that when I am in a state of abstinence without beverage alcohol or any of the other things that we do around here to fill the vacancy, untreated, that feeling, that empty, lonely, fresh, will drive me to drink again. And when you put both of them together, I find myself in what my sponsor calls a trap I cannot spring. I am doomed to get sober, to get loaded, to get sober, to get loaded, to get sober, to get loaded. There's a funny line in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous where it says that we will go on to the bitter end, blotting out our intolerable existence. I never met anyone that could do that. Because don't you always run out of money, right? Or physically get sick where you end up not able to drink? At some point, you know the cruelest thing about alcoholism is at some point you wind up sober. Going, oh my God, I did it again. I just want to kill myself. I need a drink. So I'm stuck. And it is this stuckness that I suffer from. And if you're stuck, if you're new and if you're stuck, what the rest of the steps are designed to do, I don't wish now, but early on I used to wish that there was a way to cure the phenomenon of craving, right? Wouldn't that be great? Take 2 of these and you will be able to stop at 6, right? I mean, right? Snort one up, but whatever, right? The problem with that is that if there was a pill, imagine this, you've all heard this, right? Imagine this. If there was a pill that meant you could drink 4 drinks successfully and not burn your life to the ground, what's the first thing you're thinking? What would 2 pills do? Right? What would 2 pills? If I ground them up and snorted them, right? That's what I want to know, right? If I cook them, right? If I add baking soda, then what happens, right? I want to know. So we can't treat that. So what do we treat here? What are the other 11 steps designed to treat? That vacant, squirmy, uncomfortable, lonely, absent, empty feeling that I get in a state of abstinence that drives me to drink again. That's what we treat here. And I think, in my experience, we treat it relatively successfully. We don't treat it perfectly. That's why we have steps 10 and 11, right? Because stuff gets through the cracks. But we treat it pretty damn well. Well enough for a guy like me that couldn't stay sober 21 days to be able to be sober 21 years. Let's do this, guys. It is 5 after. How about we take a break till quarter after, right? Now, before we leave, I want you guys to know, let's make it 20 after, because it's almost 10 after, 20 after, but let's try something new. No more than 22 after. Let's do, yeah, I don't know about anywhere, about Alabama, but everywhere else when we say 20 after, it's like half after. Let's try do a thing in Alabama where we're back at 20 after. Yeah! So, I'm coming out of step 1, and boy, I mean, step 1 could really be summed up as, I'm screwed. I always love it when you go to an open discussion meeting and there's always some new guy there going, I'm so excited. Why? I just did step 1. And I'm wondering, what book are they reading? Because there's no good news in step 1. If we had a 1-step program, the suicide rate in Alcoholics Anonymous would just be huge, wouldn't it? Like, I mean, I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do. I can't drink and I can't not drink. And what's worse, right, really, for me, was step 2. Because I'm screwed, and now you guys tell me that the solution, the answer for this is God. which is not good news, right? I mean, I'm either going to go on to the bitter end, blotting out my intolerable existence with alcohol, or I'm going to find spiritual help. And I want to know more about the blotting out my intolerable existence, right? So I mentioned earlier on, I alluded to the fact that I was born into a Jewish family. I was born in a Jewish home, and it's kind of true. Well, not really. Really, what I was born into is an atheist Jewish home. Now, what that means is that we're Jews, but we know we're wrong. The only people more wrong than us on the entire planet are our crazy Christian neighbors. I just want to point out that some of you laughed at the Jewish joke and you didn't laugh at the Christian joke. And I understand we're in the South, but you still have work to do. Really what we were is we were three-block Jews. Now let me explain what I mean by that. In the sect of Judaism that I grew up in, it was a strict sect, and you're not allowed to drive your car from sundown on Friday till sundown on Saturday. During the Shabbat, you cannot drive your car. And over the years, in the small town that I grew up in, the community had moved away from where our temple was. So our temple was 5 miles from the neighborhood that most of us lived in. And every Saturday morning, you would see what I call the 5-mile Jews. They would get up and put on their fancy clothes, and they would walk 5 miles to the temple. They were 5-mile Jews. We would take the bus to around the corner, make ourselves look tired, and walk the last 3 blocks. Because we were 3-block Jews, is what we were. My mom, there was ritual in our home. There was holidays and there was ritual and there was things that we did to look the part. But there was no real spirit in our home. And that wasn't really my mom's fault. It was the way she was raised and the way that I was raised. It just seemed to be that we did the stuff that made you look like you were participating, but there was no heart in it. My mom would say things to me like, you know, Sheldon, religion is the opium of the masses. It's for fools and children. Now get dressed, we're going to temple. Very confusing, very, very confusing. I went to a Jewish school for 4 years. And at that Jewish school, we were the poor kids. We were the charity case. It was a private school, and I got to go there for free. And I don't know if anybody ever rubbed that in my face, but I felt awkward, and I felt alone, and I felt separated because of that. There were some teachers that they were violent. At private schools, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, they were allowed to be a lot different than they are today in schools. And they were violent, and I just got resentments and anger against that community. I felt like when my dad left, we were kind of ostracized in that small Jewish community. Divorce wasn't acceptable the way that it is today. And I felt separate and alone from that community, and it didn't do anything for me. So I couldn't, when you're telling me God's the answer, I can't go to the religion of my childhood, and I feel like I'm stuck. And I can't do a Christian faith. And you guys are well behaved, most of you anyway. Some of you really are out of line. But most of you are well behaved, and you don't try and push your brand of faith on anybody else, because that's really not cool in AA. It's really not cool. If God He may express himself in our group conscience. But when you say that, when you tell me I can make up my own version of God, I know who you mean. Who are you kidding? And you think my ancestors killed him, for crying out loud. I mean, it's just... How do you go to that guy for help, you know? Listen, I know my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather had something to do with something bad that happened to you, but could you help me anyway, right? I just can't. I can't do it. I can't feel it. It seems hokey to me. It seems like it's a fantasy, like it's a story. I mean, boy, you know, the first thing I ever learned about God, it seemed to me, was the story didn't change much. When I was a kid, they told me about some guy that wore a red coat with a white beard, and if you did nice stuff once a year, he'd give you good things, and if you did bad stuff, he'd give you nothing. And then we graduated to the real story, which is if you do nice things, he'll give you everything, and if you do bad things, he'll burn you for eternity. right? And I just can't dig it, man. I just can't. If that's the answer, I feel like I'm blocked. I can't do nothing. Besides, I've tried God. I really feel like I've tried God. Here's what I've tried. There was this girl. The story of my life. There was this girl. Well, this girl's name was Trish. I called her Trish the Dish. She was a very cute little blonde girl. And Trish, I imagined, was my future. And the only way I was going to get to participate in my future was she was a church girl and I had to go to church with her. And, you know, to be honest, she had what I wanted and I was willing to go to any lengths to get it. So I went with Trish to church, and we were at church, and this preacher was an amazing man, right? This guy was amazing. He was very charismatic, and he caught my attention. And we're at church, and something magic happened for me in that service. And he did an altar call. He asked if you want to be prayed over by the whole congregation. And the 4 or 5 of us went to the front, and I'm getting moved by this guy, and oh man, I found something here. And then he says, I'll tell you, why don't we do this? He singled me out. He said, let's go back in the back of the church and let's talk a little bit. And I'm really kind of feeling something here, right? And we get back in this room, and this guy, he says to me, and I want you to know I am not goofing on him, because he had something that I've been searching for my entire sobriety, that I've had glimpses of, but he had it for real. He was plugged in, turned on, lit up. There was something about him magical. But he said in his faith what they did was to invoke the Holy Spirit as they talked in tongues. And I'm ready for anything. I don't know what this is going to be, but he says, let's do this. And he looks at me, and he starts this thing that to me sounds like gibberish. And I'm freaked out, right? And then he says, you try it. Well, I don't want to look stupid, so I stop making silly noises too, right? And there's 2 grown men making silly noises, and he's feeling something, and I'm feeling nothing. And I leave there thinking, this is just nuts, right? And then there's this other time, this guy, Tom worked with me at a car dealership I worked at. And he was an AA member, but he was also a devout Christian. He'd given me big books from time to time, and 12 and 12. So this one time, he says, you know, I wanted you to try something else. I'm going to give you this sinner's prayer. And if you'll say this when you really mean it, now you have to really mean it. If you'll say this when you really mean it, God will enter your heart and soul, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. He gives me this prayer. I take it home. I stick it up on his shelf. It means nothing to me. But within a couple of weeks, I'm in the shower, and I'm having one of those snot bubble moments, you know. I'm just going to die, and I hate my life, and I can't quit drinking. I'm weeping. And I say, the sinner's prayer, right? So I get out of the shower, I put a towel on the bathroom floor, and I grab this sinner's prayer. Now, if you're picturing this, I want you to picture me clothed. I was naked, but it's a much better picture clothed, trust me, right? I grab this sinner's prayer, and I start to pray this prayer, and I pray this prayer, and I really mean it. And I get done, and I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know if I was expecting this bright light like Wilson talks about in his story, if I was expecting angels playing harps, or I don't know what I was expecting. But I get done, and it's nothing. That was a waste of time. So I get here, and you tell me that I need to find God, and I think I've searched for God. I think I've tried. And I'm taking it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and We Agnostics, where it says lack of power, that was our dilemma. And I knew that was true. I didn't have the power to quit. I couldn't quit. But I get with my sponsor, and we do step 1, and he says, okay, well, we're done with step 1. Let's go on with the rest of the steps. And I tell him, well, I can't. I can't do step 2. I can't do step 2, and I can't do step 3. Can't do them. Can't do step 2. Can't do step 3. Can't do them. Can't do them. Won't do them. Can't do them. Not doing them. Can't do them. He says, why? I said, because I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. How can I do step 2 if I don't believe in God? How can I do step 3? How can I become willing to believe that something more powerful if I don't believe in God? And how can I turn my will and my life over to the care of something if I don't believe in God? I don't believe in God. He says, you don't believe in God? I said, no, I don't believe in God. He goes, okay, you don't have to believe in God. I go, what are you talking about? He said, I want you to do something for me. I want you to go out to the home group, find the people you respect, the people who seem like they're doing this thing in a way you'd like to do it, they're getting the effect you'd like to get, and ask them why they're sober. Well, I know why they're sober. It could be, it's almost like they write it on the back of a business card and hand it out. If anybody ever asks you why you're sober, say this, right? Why are you sober? I'm sober today by the grace of a powerful God that I found in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that allows me to stay sober one day at a time. I'd like to thank God for AA, and I'd like to thank AA for God, you know. And I don't mean to goof on that, because if you ask me why I'm sober, I'll tell you why I'm sober. I'm sober because of the grace of a loving God that I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. All right? And if I ever do get to meet the big guy, I will say, Pops, great ride, loved the planet, the whole deal was cool. That AA thing, that was special to me. I'd like to... dig it. Dig the whole AA thing. It was good. It was good. So then he says to me, well, let me ask you a question, Sheldon. If you found God in step 2, or if you really turned your will over to him in step 3, why would you do step 4? I mean, if God's the answer and you found God in 2 or 3, why would you do 4? 4 sucks. Really, it does. If your 4th step didn't suck, you did it wrong. 5 is humiliating and embarrassing. 6 and 7, nobody understands 6 and 7. 8 and 9 are expensive. 10 and 11 are so confusing that half the people in this room think they're doing 10 when they're really doing 11. And who's got time for 12? Right? Who's got time for that? I got a job now and a wife and a kid and a career and Seinfeld's on. I mean, who's got time for that, right? Why would I do any of that if I could find God in 2 or 3? The big book says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I have this awakening as a result of the steps. So what does step 2 mean? What does it mean for me to do step 2? What do I ask of my guys when they do step 2? In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, great place to look, on page 47, it asks the question of step 2. It says, do I now believe? Which I didn't. I did not believe. Do I now believe? No, I don't believe. I do not believe in God. I don't believe in God. No, I don't believe. You don't believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. You sure you don't believe in God? I don't believe in God. I do not believe in God. The question is, do I now believe? And the answer is no. He said, okay, it's a comma, not a period. Can we read the rest of the sentence? Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? Do I now believe, or I'm even willing to believe there is a power greater than myself? What does that mean? Am I willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, perhaps, possibly, there might be a God? I mean, it's unlikely, right? The whole thing's kind of hokey. It's a little bit ridiculous. But am I willing to believe that maybe there might be? It's possible that there could be a God. Maybe. I doubt it. I mean, seriously, if you put me on a lie detector test or a gun to my head and push me and say, do you believe? I don't believe. But is it possible that maybe there might be a God? As unlikely as it seems at this point. And what's a guy like me to say to that? I mean, how stubborn and locked up and stupid do I have to be able not be able to answer the question of, look, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. It's not my experience.